So in the previous weeks, we finished the topics on the 8 consciousness and the 51 mental factors. Now we are moving to the part 3 about form dharmas. Okay, and part 3 and part 4. From the slide, you can see that these 2 topics are related to our modern science closely, but not the same. So I will use some of the scientific understanding to explain what we have known from Buddha's teaching in 2000 plus years ago. And so the form Dharma, the form, we can also call it the matter. And in a Theravada system, they call it rupa. So if you are interested in these topics, I found out that Theravada, especially Abhidharma, explain this section in very, very detailed. And it's very informative, and I learned a lot from the explanation of the in the Abhidharma, and so you also can check it out from this for this topic. Okay, so by definition, what we call the form or the physical material, physical world, it's actually aggregates of form that manifest what we have seen, what we see, and what we perceive. Okay, and so specifically, it can divide it into 2 parts. The first part is we call it 5 physical organs. The second part is the corresponding sense objects. And okay, so the 6 from the so-called 6 organs, you can see on the the pink part, except for the mind. The rest of the 5 are the organs that we are going to talk about today. And the mind, we have talked about it in the previous talk, which are the the mind consciousness and the mental factors. And together, the 5 organs together with the 6 sensible objects, which are sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and Dharma. And this Dharma is has 2 definitions. One is more spiritual and conceptual, and the other is called invisible Dharma, but it's that can be that can have influence on the object, the sensible object. Okay, so we call it 12 entrance, and because of this 12 entrance, we gain a lot of vexations due to the interaction of these 11 elements, 11 dharmas. And overall, Buddhism usually use 18 realms to describe our existence, including our mind, our body, and our environment. So that include the 18 realms, include the 6 objects, 6 organs, and 6 consciousness. And this, in total, we call it our mind. Okay, and why the object, the outside object, is also in our mind, and hopefully I can explain to make you understand better in today's talk. Okay, from the previous diagram, I further modified it. So this iceberg diagram we have underneath the mind and above the sea level is the form. And so our minds need to perceive the outside, the so-called outside environment or the material, the physical world through the body, tongue, nose, ear, and eye. Okay, so these 5 organs are just like detectors or receivers that help. It's, it use this, basically it's our body. Okay, we have this body as a detector or receiver that help our mind receive information from the objects and then further process by the 6th consciousness through the channel of the 7th consciousness to get the data from the 8th consciousness in order for us to make discrimination or make the perceptions that make us know what we are really perceiving. Okay, so these are the detectors. The 5 organs are the detector. And also, just on a separate note, that we know from the previous talk that the detectors for the 6th consciousness is the 7th consciousness, because the how the 6th consciousness make discrimination, they need the 6th consciousness need help to use the 7th consciousness as the detector to get information from the 8th consciousness. So for the 6th consciousness to make discrimination, okay? So one detector, the root is inside, okay? The other 5 is in our body, okay? Now, what is the composition of the 5 organs? Just like let's look at our body, that we have eye, ear, nose, tongue, and the body, the skin to touch. And actually, it's not just that. We call it, this part is visible outer organs. And we also have invisible inner organs. And from current science, we know that we have a nervous system and we have neuron cell. Okay, so I just copied the definition. A single neuron cells that can transmit information, and this information electrically by potentials and chemically by neurotransmitters. This is a more scientific this is a scientific terminology that you don't need to understand in detail, but you just need to know that actually the process of the information through our organ is not just like eye or ear. If there is something wrong with our nervous system, your eye, your ear is okay, but you cannot process the sound. You cannot process the light, the color properly. Okay. So you, like this pandemic, the COVID-19 virus, it will cause the loss of the taste or the smell. Okay. So your nose and your tongues are normal, functional, but you cannot tell, what you are eating or what you smell. And that's because the virus may attack your nervous system. So you cannot have proper perception process. Okay. So just remember that the organs here we talk about has 2 parts. One is visible outer organs. The other is invisible inner organs. And in ancient time, nobody knows about the nervous system. Okay. But according to the sutra, only Buddha and those practitioners or saints that develop heavenly eyes that they can see. They can actually see the nervous system in our body, in our body. Okay, so from scientific point of view, that our nervous system has two parts. One is called central nervous system. The other is called peripheral nervous system. So as you can see that the central nervous systems is majorly on our spine and to the brain. And then the peripheral nervous system is more widespread to the whole body, and the nerve and neurons are very fine. It's almost transparent, and actually we have to look at it through the microscope. And so that's the first thing we need to know about the organs. Okay, and when we go in more detail, what is the composition of the form? This apply to both organs and also the objects that we are going to talk about in the second part of the talk. Okay, so the composition is, you heard a lot about four elements: the earth, the water, the fire, and the air. And also together with the four properties from the four elements, which are the solidity or attractive forces from the earth elements, and liquidity or relative motions from water elements, and heat or energies from the fire elements, and expansion or repulsive forces from the air elements. Together, these eight factors are dominate the composition of the form. So, for example, our body, the bone, the teeth are major. The dominant elements are the earth and the solidity. So when we are aging, then our bone become fragile and we lose our teeth. Okay, that's because we are losing our earth elements. And water is the blood, the circulation of the blood. And also the fire, the temperature of our body, and the air is the lung. Okay, so our lungs need to breathing and breathe out, breathing in and breathing out, to provide oxygen for our body. So this COVID-19, one of the symptoms is people cannot breathe. Okay, so once we lost our breathing ability, we cannot get oxygen, and we eventually die. So these four elements are very important, and the four properties. So when we are born, this eight property is very strong, and when we are aging, and we gradually lose these eight factors, and eventually lose all of them. And so this is the and also this is also the eight factors that compose what we are seeing the outside, like trees, the mountain, the river, and all the environment materials, physical materials are also composed majorly by these eight factors. And from the Abhidharma, okay, so this is a take-home message. If you are really interested in the form Dharma, I encourage you to check it out from the website, both in Chinese and in English. They are very informative. Why the form? Okay. There are four key causes the first is, of course, the karma. Okay, without the karma, we cannot get, reborn as a being. Okay, so the karma depends on which karma. We talked about that in the previous talk. Which realm we be born to depends on what kind of karma that are ripened when we die, and when we at the moment we are reborn. Okay, and the mind also contribute the formation of form. So from the Abhidhamma, once we enter into the embryo, and all the mental activity contribute the aggregation of the form. Okay, and it's constantly changed. Okay. For example, I was just, it's one example. Okay, if I angry a lot, I often get angry. This angry mental activity is actually damage my liver. Okay, so according to Chinese medicines, that the people get angry, then your liver always have a lot of heat. Okay, so this is very interesting. So our mind, we cannot change our karma. If everyone born like somebody was born very healthy, good lung, good heart, good liver, good kidney, good muscles, good bones, good eye, good ear, listen very, very subtle differences of the sound. They can taste, they can smell subtle differences of the fragrance. They are born to be that way. Okay, and somebody just a very weak body, sometimes people born to have a kidney failure. These are all by the karma. But once we are born, okay, and we are responsible for our body. Okay, if we always like has unwholesome mental activity, then our mind, our body it will have problem eventually. Okay, it gets sick. If we always, even I have a weak body, but I always think positively, and then sometimes your body, you will feel energized. Okay, and the third element is called uptoja, something like that. Okay, it's about the fire and energy. What it means is when a form aggregate. Okay, so there are three processes: is the formation, abiding, and decaying. Okay, so when things start to aggregate, it is at the stage of the abiding stage, that which has the strong fire energy at that stage, that the form actually form. Otherwise, if the fire is not enough, then it will not form. Okay, and the fourth is about the food. Actually, once the embryo, the consciousness enter into the embryo, we need nutrition from mother's womb. Okay, so ever since we enter into the embryo, we need nutritions. Okay, from the beginning to the end of our life. Okay, so this is just basically just refresh our memory that the karma seeds that once we are rebirth into certain realms, there is a kinds of seeds called the seeds of different property that will dominate what our body will be and what the world that we will be born into. And these are from the seeds of different property in the eighth consciousness. Okay, And this is like once the consciousness here, the 12 links of dependent origination, once the consciousness in purple color enter into the embryo, and then it start to develop the name and the form. Okay, so start to initiate our mind, body, and mind, the material world and the spiritual world. Okay, and then further, this will develop our whole body or the 6 organs. Okay, so our form is actually initiated by the karma, and once it's stabilized and it developed the name and form, we need a nutrition. Okay, we need the previous the 5 elements and the nutritions to sustain or develop our physical body. Okay, and the other thing I would like to talk about is it's similar to the previous 4 factors, but here for us, it's very important to know that there are 4 resources of foods that can enrich our body and life. The first one is foods from meals, like what we have to eat, food, meals, vegetables, proteins, vitamins, etc., to feed our body so that it has energy to function. Okay, function well. Okay, and so for ordinary people, we need to eat every day. And the second foods is foods from contact. Okay, sometimes the contact is through the 5 organs. When our eye contact with, like, if you are artist, okay, you are painting. So the painting is your objects, and you are so involved in the painting, this contact, your eye and your painting. And sometimes you don't need to eat. You don't need to sleep. You don't need to drink. Okay, you're so involved in the contact. And sometimes when we listen to the music we like, okay, or practice piano, you know, and then you are so involved in the contact of the sound, and then again, you don't need to eat. You know, this kind of contact usually it's a pleasure, you know, contact that can you can bypass the meals. Okay, and also, like, if you do massage, it's touching, so people massage on your body, and sometimes you just feel energized, and then you know you can eat less. Okay, that's called the foods from the contact. The third one is the foods from volition. Okay, now this is very interesting. Sometimes in the extreme condition, you can bypass food and sleep and water through your willpower. Okay, that's called the volition, especially the volition mental factors from your 6 consciousness. So, for example, you climbing the mountain, okay, and then you lost contact with your team, and you don't have food and water, but because your willpower make you survive 3 days without eating and drinking until the rescue team come to get you. Okay, that's through your willpower. And for ordinary people, like our master, actually, he oftentimes told us that when he get on the stage and give Dharma talk, nobody can see, nobody can see that he was really sick. But through the vow, the willpower that he want to share the Dharma. So when he get on the stage, you found that him is shiny, and he's just like healthy, energized, but actually he was very sick. Okay, so this is the foods from the volition that can enrich our body performance. Okay, and how about the foods from the consciousness? That's I have talked about that. This is basically talk about the consciousness that enter into the embryo, and then it will enrich the development of the name and the form, and further enrich the development of the 6 organs. So without the, if you are pregnant, even for like three months or 4 months, but if your karmic affinity with the baby is just very loose, and the baby, the consciousness decided to leave this body, and you just miscarriage. Okay, that's because the consciousness leave. Okay, of course, if you don't get enough nutrition, you miscarriage as well. So here, I just use these same figures to point out that for the form, the form physical part, the form, name and form, and 6 organs, basically the consciousness can enrich the development of the forms, and the foods as well, of course, and the contact through the good sensation, especially wonderful pleasure sensation that also can feed, enrich our body. And also here, the wanting, the strong will and strong eager or strong vows that you want to do something. Okay, that's also will enrich or to make our body have better functioning. Okay, and also the so-called life is that sometimes we have family members, they are dying, but sometimes they just wait and wait until the last person that they want to see badly show up, and then they die. Okay, so that's wanting to see the mindset of wanting to see the will that want to see that person, keep this dying person to live a little bit longer until that will or that wish is fulfilled. Okay. Now, also through the map of the 3 realms and 9 grounds, we can see that, we talked about that earlier. In the desire realms, we have 8 consciousness. So our 5 organs are fully functioning. Okay, so we need basically those 4 kinds of food. Okay, of course that there is eating food, and but for heavenly beings, that the foods that eat or the goes that is not through the tongue, okay, is through their smelling. They smell the flavor to eat. Okay, and when we get to the form realms, okay, so their eye, their ear are functioning, but not the nose and tongue. Okay, so how they eat are different from ordinary people here. And so when people enter into samadhi, okay, that's also they don't need to eat food. Okay, so because they have the willpower and the samadhi power that sustain their body functioning well. Okay, so oftentimes we can see that some stories that there are some masters that they enter into very deep samadhi, like Master Guangqing, okay, he entered into a deep samadhi that he even didn't need to breathe. Okay, so people think that the person died, but it is the Master Hong Yi that know that he is in deep samadhi and that help him wake up back to normal. Okay, so I briefly talk about the form Dharma, the five organs, how the five organs are composed, how they sustained, and how they are functioning. The functioning of the six organ were together with the six object that we'll talk about it later. And next, we talk about six objects. Okay, we hear a lot about the form, the sound, the smell, the taste, the touch. And last week, people asked about the Dharma. You know, why in the diagram there is a dot about Dharma, and it can, you know, the dot go to the sixth consciousness, and the sixth consciousness also dot to the eighth consciousness. Okay, I'm going to tell you why, because there is an object that is called formal thought object. Okay, this is copy from the web. Okay, the translation is formal thought object. Chinese is also difficult to understand. Okay, so basically, it's because of the mind because of the mind that created the aggregation of the form, and then it will help the physical body to perform differently, depends on what kinds of formal thought objects that our sixth consciousness grasp. Okay, here I get into here. It's very interesting. There is the one, okay, we have to remember this is in the Buddha's age, Buddha's time, okay, no scientific research, but here, the first formal thought object that here is called the concrete form analyzed to minutest extent, okay. In Chinese, 即略色 is actually talk about the fundamental smallest material form. Okay, that is current scientific knowledge is quarks. Right now, science find that the smallest elements of material is quark. Even a proton, okay, very small neutron composed of quarks, okay. So nobody can see it, right? We ordinary people, through our eyes, we cannot see it, but Buddha can see it. So Buddha said that there is an object through practice of our mind can see quarks. Okay, I cannot prove it to you. We have to practice by ourselves, okay? So, but these elements exist. Even science proves that the quark exists, okay? So in Buddha's time, Buddha said that there is the smallest elements of material world, okay? And the second is called non-concrete form, analyzed to grandest extent. Non-concrete form means space and color. Okay, why I can see the space, why I can see the camera and me, there is a space in between. Okay, why I can see yellow color, red color, green color, because there is a very subtle elemental form exists. Okay, that's called photon in nowadays. Photon is the elements of light. Okay, so with the light, we can see space. We can see different color. In totally dark space, we basically cannot see anything. Okay, so Buddha said that, okay, there is another, also this proton, a very tiny spot. Through meditation, through this samadhi, you can see it. But our ordinary human eyes cannot see it. Okay, and this, the smallest material elements and smallest light elements are very important because it will dominate. It forms, from the quarks, we can see atoms, we can see molecules, and then we can see objects. Okay, photon the same way. With the reflection or diffraction of the photons to the object, we can see different colors. Okay, we can see the differences of the space, okay, the length, okay, etc. And the third one is the wheel or the vowels, innermost impression of perceptual form. And through the vowels or the wheel, we can see, we can feel different things, okay? And this part, I explained that earlier, that through the wheel and vowels, and without meals for 3 days, you can still, have the energy to fight with the bad weather. Okay, so this vows initiate aggregation of the form in your body. And again, if you are deep practitioners, you can see the formation of it through your vows. Okay, the fourth one is called the hallucination. Okay, we see the movie a lot. The people claim that they see something. They see some people, they see the flowers, they hear the sound, but we don't. Okay, that's the false conceptual constructions. And the last one is called forms produced and mastered in samadhi. And this is very interesting, okay? If you check out one from the web, there is a series called Supernature, or it's natural, okay? But anyway, supernatural powers, oftentimes in the retreat, in the Chang Hall, sometimes when people interview with the master, and they sometimes claim that, they see something and they hear something, far away, and they see their family members in their country, not in the Chang Hall. They just see it, okay? They just hear it, okay? This is because when people practice very well and their minds very calm and maybe into a certain level of samadhi, then the 5 organs start to develop a special ability that they can perceive something that ordinary people cannot perceive. And also, even significantly, some master can duplicate their body. Okay, so they're sitting in the Chang Hall, and also they can show up in downtown. Okay, or they can make something formalized. Okay, for example, if you I didn't really see it in person, and some people will have supernatural power. They can form a cup in front of you for you to see. But how long the cup can manifest depends on the samadhi power of that person. Okay, this is what this talk about, the supernatural power that produced the form. Okay, so these 5 are called formal thought object. Okay, so these basically need to um, we we need to perceive this kind of thought object through the 6 consciousness, but those exist. Okay, so that's why it belongs to this one of the 6 objects. Okay, now this is very interesting. It's too tense from the previous. It's so many terminology. Now I would like to share with you a very interesting. This is a masterpiece of the painting. The auction values is $20.6 million. Basically, a white painting. Okay, and I remember I went to MoBA in New York. I also see a white painting or red painting, blue painting or something, just like one color painting hanging there. So I was so wondering, I stand in front of the white painting for a long time. I'm like, okay, I don't have artist training, but what is this spatial? Why they put it in a museum, And does any trick, any special things in the painting that I cannot see? So I meditated, I relaxed my eyes, I use all kinds of methods, try to see what's in this white painting, what's the spatial? And when I see this $20.6 million white painting, what happened? Why? Okay. Now, one day I finally realized why. I understand why, but I still don't know why. I cannot directly experience the value, the meaning of this white painting, but I can understand why it's valuable. We have members in San Francisco. He's an architect, okay, but his father is a very famous national levels of artist painter in Taiwan. Okay, he passed away a few years ago, and I remember in his house there are many duplicate painting of his father. And one day I just asked about the painting, and because he started to paint by himself, and so I asked, you love painting, why you don't become an artist? And his father say, because as a painter, you starve, you cannot make money. So he chose architect as his specialty. And so he wanted to learn painting. And he said that his father didn't want to teach him how to paint. He just tell his son, you just paint, sit here through the window, paint these scenes every day, the morning, the noon, in the evening, sunrise, sunset, spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Just keep painting. He didn't want to teach any trick to his son, and he only told his son, when you paint, don't draw lines. Okay, when there is a tree, don't draw a line, so saying that this is a stamp, this is a leaves. Don't draw lines, because color, why this stamp is brown color is only because the population of the brown color is most tense in this area. The brown color is everywhere, but only the stem has more brown color. Okay, but don't draw a line saying that, thinking that this is brown color, and this is blue color. Okay, first, don't draw a line. And the most important elements for paintings is light, space, and moisture. You need to paint. You see the light in the morning, in the noon, in the evening, the lights are different. So the object you perceive will be different. And how about the space? The space, far, close, and also depends on the perception, and depends on the season, and depends on the time, it depends on the mind. And moisture, in the autumn, the leaves is dry. In the spring, it's in summer, the moisture of the leaves are different, like fresh apple and aged apple, same thing. So he only tell, just like what we say, the four elements, okay? The water, the space, the air, the space, and the sunshine, the light. And the last one, the most important colors is the white color. Okay. So that's instruction. And then his son started to paint, until he started to learn meditation one day. He started to realize that his father is really a master of painting. We emphasize the skill of painting. This is not the real art. Okay, the real art is through the mind. And he told me that when his father's paint, he will paint, the painting is there for a year. Every day he come back and he repaint again. Every day he came back, repaint again. And eventually the painting will become all white. So his mother just worried a lot because his father's painting worth a lot. And when it become all white, it's worthless. See, we are not a real art. If his mother know that the white painting is very valuable, that he will keep it. So every time his father paint, and then he will hide it, otherwise it will eventually become white color. Okay. And he also told his son, don't grab the pen, don't start to paint until the object and your mind become one, united. You have to observe the object until the object and your mind become one. Then you grab the pen, start to paint. You start to grab the brush, start to paint. Okay, so that's from an artist, the true artist, that because of the painting, he transcends the perception of the eyes that we ordinary people perceive, the process we perceive. We see the line between each object, and we see the object. We cannot see, we are tightened or attached to the individual objects, okay? But through an artist, okay, he practiced the perception of the eyes to the levels that he transcend the borderline of the objects. There is no line between each object. Okay, that's a very, very important way to tell us that, we need to rethink how we perceive. Okay. Another take-home message is, there is a very famous philosophical thought experiment. Okay, the question is, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? Does it make a sound? Okay, Somebody, I check one from the web. People say, of course it makes a sound, bang, right? Then the other people say, sorry, no sound, because there is no observer to perceive the sound wave to make it a sound. Okay, so this is more close to Yogacara's concept, and also if you are a scientist, you know what it is about. Okay, actually, the objects we perceive. Why light is very important? Okay, because the photons shine on the object and it reflects with different wavelengths, frequency, wavelengths, and this wavelengths went through our eye organs and it become a potential transmit through the nervous system from the neurons to the brain, and it tells you that this is red color. Okay, so what the eye organ really perceive is actually a wavelength of light. And so different colors has different wavelengths. Okay, so the red color actually exists as a wavelength, a wave, light wave, without organs, without the process of the organs, outer organ and inner organs. Our brain cannot know that this is red color. It's not red color in our mind, in the sixth consciousness. Otherwise, our brain has all kinds of colors, but it's not. So same likewise for the sound. Sound is also a frequency. When something hits something, okay, when the music is made, what we hear, the ear, what we receive is the frequency of the sound. Okay, so through the eye organs, the frequency become again a potentials, and then through our brains. And then we say, oh, this is a music, this is a tree falling to the ground. Okay, so without an observer, without organs, when no one is there, the signal for the sound, the signal for the color are all wavelengths, frequency. They are not color, they are not apple, they are not desk. This is just a signal around. The same thing if you check a scientific books. Okay, the taste is chemicals. Smell is also chemicals. The touching is potentials. Okay, so how our five organs perceive the objects, actually the signal, how we perceive, how we recognize it as the object is through the process of the mind. Okay, but it's just Yogacara talk about it in more detail, not through the brain. Okay, if we just talk about the brain, and then it will be just like materialism. Okay, Yogacara is talk about mind. Everything is manifest in the mind. So here is the reason. This is the most important message that we talk about. The form Dharma is actually the form Dharma, the organs, the outside world that we perceive, that we own. The body is actually manifestation of the mind. Okay, here is the process. So when we, in the process of reborning, okay, so there is an activation of the retribution seeds, okay, and okay, you are good people, you keep 5 precepts, okay, and then this the seeds of the retributions, karma, mature, and this will the eighth consciousness, the seeds will sprouting, and it's sprouting, and it will manifest the objectivity part of the so-called the body and the world. Okay, so the body and the world objectivity manifest. Okay, here, just, I put all the eight consciousness. There is a very complicated interconnections of the eight consciousnesses. And this, remember, these eight consciousnesses are one mind, not the mind divided into eight parts. It just has different function, different aspects of the function of the mind. So now we are human. So the human, the perception, the six organs of the human body, and the perception, the world of the human world, the tree, the river, the mountain, all the seeds sprouting. And once it's sprouting, oops, sorry. It provides through the sixth consciousness, because the sixth consciousness grabs the subjectivity part of the eighth consciousness as a self. So all this objectivity part become what I grasp. Okay, and this through the seventh consciousness attachment, and these objectivity parts become the database, the pool for the sixth consciousness to match. Okay, so the first five consciousnesses, once the red apple come in, okay, what we see is like this, like human. It's like all the signals, but it's not clear. But it's just the signal. You see an image, okay? But it is through, the first five consciousness has object. This object will call the sixth consciousness will co-arise with the first consciousness and help to analyze the signal that coming in. How? Through the database from the eighth consciousness. Match, just like the facial recognition system that are developing right now. So the signal coming in from the detector, but the detector need to know who is this person, and they got to have this person's database in the computer, right? And then so it starts to match. There's of course different algorithm to match the data, to match the data in the database, and in order to tell that what you detect who this person is, what kind of color, skin color, eyes, shape, all kinds of that, in order to discriminate that who this person is. And same thing for the discrimination of the object is our organs is detector, and the signal coming in, the wavelengths, the frequency, potential, whatever chemicals coming in. And then the sixth consciousness like receive, I need to describe, I need to make a judgment what this is. And then through the help of the seventh consciousness, the sixth consciousness is able to access a certain database, the certain data pool, and a match and tell you, okay, this is a red apple. Okay, so that's what Yogacara explain. The process of perception is actually inside the manifestation of the object. You see red color, you see apple. Why you have the name of apple? Is because the process of the eight consciousness. Okay, so if you read the sutra, animals, the same world, same table here. Do we know how they perceive the table is? If you are an ant, you cannot see table. Your perception, this is not table. This is a huge Himalaya mountain. Okay, maybe. All right. So the most important part, you can, forget about everything. But here, remember, the form Dharma, the explanation of the form Dharma is actually the most important part, is that the manifestation of the name and form is through our mind. It doesn't say that the things does not exist. The wavelengths, the frequency exist. But how we perceive it is through our mind. And also, our fundamental ignorance is that we have to perceive in order to know things exist, including ourselves. This is a very fundamental ignorance. So right now, science talk about dark matter. We don't know too much things exist because we cannot detect them, because the frequency, the wavelength is beyond our organ ability to process. So we don't think they exist, but they exist. This is an important part for scientists to explore. And we have to transcend that we have to detect in order to know that it exists, this barrier for scientists. Okay, so I have to stop here. This is one of our masters, Dharma heir, Max Kalin. I talked to him a lot when I was a layperson, when we met in the retreat. And I discussed because we both scientists, we discussed a lot. And I checked with him because he one time told me that he wants to develop experiments. He wants to apply a grant that he wanted to build up a huge magnet to generate the frequency that the current scientific field does not exist yet, in order to detect the message when people enter into samadhi. Because he is a high practitioner, he has a very deep samadhi experience. So he knows that when people enter into samadhi, the emission of the brain is not just alpha, beta, gamma. There is something else. Some other frequency exists, but we cannot detect that this person is in samadhi or not, because these frequencies do not exist yet. So he wanted to develop this experiment. I was so curious. So 2 years ago, I emailed him, try to check out the progress of the experiment. Unfortunately, this grant does not pass. And also he told me that life is so short. He has no time to work on the science because it's too slow. So he said, he told me this, Dharma is personal experience. He examined the process within our mind. And what is science? Is we all together, because I have to prove to you, I have to prove to everybody in order to prove that this is true. And this is we examine the process without. And that's a very different approach. But hopefully I found out that recent scientists, some of them start to try to merge these two, within and without together. But this is a very big challenge. But I'm happy to know that this is happening. It's still a long way to go, but this is happening. If you are interested in this, you can just check it out, key in some keywords, and you can find some references. Okay, so I've stopped here.
Thank you, Fashi. So I guess we're gonna open for questions. So if you have a question, just mail yourself. Yes? No?
Chang Hwa Fashi, 谢谢你. Thank you very much for a great talk. I enjoy every sequence of it since you started. I'm wondering that when you talk about the eighth sense and how it's where your analysis and information that you can retrieve from of when that scene. But so then you mentioned about the ant and how when they see table versus us seeing table. So I'm curious if one person in their several life, that one life is ant and one life is person, then how does this A sense sort of know which database to be initiated? Or maybe there's I don't know. I'm just having questions on that.
All right.
Yeah.
This is a very important question because as a scientist, I have that question in the beginning about, memory. What is the memory? What is the difference between memory and consciousness? Okay. Obviously, the consciousness is carried from the past, present, and future, but memory does not. Okay. So because memory, for example, I remember my mother is this figure, right? But I cannot remember what my past mother looks like. I can't even remember what my past appearance looked like, right? This is called memory. But memory and the consciousness in the current lives share together. For example, fire. Fire is dangerous. This is a store. But the kid, the orphan, the kids does not know fire is dangerous, right? They don't know this is fire. We educate them. So they accumulate the knowledge
Through life.
through experience, current experience. Okay, so that become like, I know this is the apple because my mom told me this is apple. But for the kids that never see apple, you say apple, or if you don't know Chinese, I say 苹果. These two words doesn't mean anything to you.
Right.
And this apple show up, you don't know how to say this, you don't know it's edible, right? So this is through experience, through education, through learning, and also stored in the consciousness. But the major consciousness, the seeds we store, like I say, the two parts. The first is the seeds that store as different quality. Okay, the wholesome, wholesome mind, the unwholesome mind, and also the affinity, the good affinity, the yuan between you and other people. So, for example, I see you look like this, but why I don't like you? Why I like you so much? The first time I see this person, I like him. But all the people looks like him, you don't like every of them, right?
Yeah.
So there are certain information that is remain in the consciousness through all the lives. But there are some memory, but their memory is also stored in the consciousness. Otherwise, when you close your eyes, when I say apple, you can visualize the apple, right?
Yes.
Your eyes are closed. You don't see apple. I know it's very complicated. But
No, you explained well. Thank you so much. 我是吴晶晶 again. 谢谢法师.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I remember I went to your home.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay. I have to answer a question. Last talk, quick question. Last talk, I think I jumped too fast about aversion. Okay. So aversion is a strong dislike. And then this is a sensation. So from this sensation, we automatically will have a strong willingness to avoid this aversion. So that's why I just jumped to, when we have aversions, we will have a strong mindset to avoid this object. But the aversion really means the strong hatred or strong dislike. Okay. Sorry that if you have question, you can post it somewhere, Facebook,